It's truly my pleasure to be here with you today talking about funding. Before we can even think about accessing funding strategically, we need to make sure we're building a business that funders see as investment ready, because that piece right there will save you a lot of time and frustration and honestly heartache. Before we dive into the content, I just wanted to talk one on one so you know who you're talking to. Spent almost 20 years working in nonprofit leadership roles. So I became quite successful at securing millions of dollars in funding for those organizations that I was working with. But what happened, I got pregnant and had kids. So I actually switched my careers to start my own business so I could stay home with my babies. And this was before remote work was a thing. So it felt like a huge risk, but a necessary risk for me at the time. For a few years, it worked. Stay at home mom by day and entrepreneur by night. But as my business grew, that pace wasn't sustainable for me or my mental health. So, as a business owner, I accessed my first funding opportunity. I applied for the Canada Summer Jobs Grant so I could hire support for a few months. And honestly, that changed everything. Since then, I've accessed several funding opportunities for travel, capacity building, marketing, employees, exporting, web design, and more. And just in the past 5 years, iPlume has helped organizations and businesses across Canada secure over $40 million in funding, close to 50 million. But what matters most to me isn't the dollar amount. It's building that internal capacity so entrepreneurs can just stop guessing and become knowledgeable and confident in their funding strategy. That means understanding what to pursue, how to prepare, and how to build internal that make funding sustainable instead of stressful. Women-owned businesses represent roughly 18% of small and medium-sized businesses in Canada. Black entrepreneurs represent 4% of business nationally, and Black women, very small share of business owners overall, representing under 1% of all entrepreneurs in Canada. But we look at access to capital, whether it's grants, loans, investments, the distribution not equitable. And that's not about talent or intelligence, it's about structure. Black and women founders are more likely to rely on personal savings or bootstrap longer and less likely to receive traditional financing. So, when we talk about funding readiness, we're not just talking about writing a compelling narrative. We're talking about understanding the system we're operating in and positioning ourselves strategically within it. Strategy plus structure equals stronger funding outcomes. Grants are not free money, they're risk assessments. Funders are asking, can this business deliver? Is it credible? Is it aligned with our mandate and what we want to achieve? Is this a safe investment? Most applications fail because the readiness is unclear. So here's a question for you. If someone handed you $50,000 tomorrow, could you clearly explain to them exactly what you would do with it, how long it would take you to spend it, what measurable outcome it would produce, and what happens after the money is spent? Could anyone do that tomorrow for $50,000? Well, that's where we want to get you to. You want to be able to say, yeah, I'll take the 1,000, I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. So I have a lot of intro calls with entrepreneurs that seem to have just discovered grants and funding, or a fellow entrepreneur just received a grant and now they want free money too. But they're coming without intention. They're waiting for me to tell them what to do. So when I ask them the simple questions, what do you need funding for? They can't really answer me. They can. In the back of their head, the answer is everything. And we know that as small business owners and entrepreneurs. We need money for everything. We just need money. But typically, those businesses aren't yet ready for funding. It's about getting clear in the beginning because that's how funders are thinking. They're not just going to give you money. You need to be extremely clear on what you need it for, how you will use it, and what it will generate. So, if that's how funders are thinking, then the real question isn't which grant can I apply for? It's whether your business is actually prepared and ready to apply. So, then we need to define what ready actually looks like. Over the years, whether working with nonprofits or businesses, I've noticed funders consistently assess the same core areas. To become fundable, you need strength in business clarity, financial readiness, defined scope, capacity and credibility, and outcomes with sustainability. So if one of these pillars is weak, your probability of accessing funding drops. And it's not because you're not capable, it's because the risk feels higher to the reviewer. So if grants are risk assessments, then let's walk through what that actually means in practice. Let's start with business clarity. Funders need to understand exactly what you do, who you serve, how you make money, and where you are going. If your positioning shifts depending on the conversation, that signals instability. If you're talking to one person, they ask you what you do, and you tell them one thing, but then you tell someone something else, then you need to get clearer on your business case and your business plan. If your revenue model is vague, that signals uncertainty. How are you going to make money? How are you sustainable? If your growth direction is unclear, then that will signal risk. So clarity will build confidence, and then the confidence makes it easier for a reviewer to say yes. One of the simplest tests is this. If I asked three people connected to your business what you do, would I get the same answer? Next is financial readiness. This is often the most uncomfortable pillar, especially for early stage founders who've been investing their own time and money, figuring things out on their own as they go. But funders are looking for grounded numbers. They want to see that you understand your cost structure, that your bookkeeping is current, that your projections make sense in relation to your stage. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for credibility. If your numbers feel inflated or disconnected or overly optimistic, then the risk increases. But if your numbers feel realistic and proportional to your plan, then confidence increases. And also, where you are in your financial readiness may also affect your eligibility for different opportunities. For example, some funders require that your annual revenue be a certain threshold. You can't apply to this unless your revenue is at least $100,000 a year, or that you've been established for at least a year. Some funders won't necessarily fund someone 6 months into their entrepreneurial journey, or they would require that you have at least one employee on payroll. If you don't meet that criteria, then that just means that you're not ready yet. But this time next year, when the funding comes around again, you will be. And that's when you can start planning ahead. When we have defined project scope, what exactly are you doing with this money? Over what timeline? What are the deliverables? What are the activities that you're going to do during that time frame? And then what measurable result? What happens as a result of this funding? Is it something that's going to your profitability long term and sustain your company? And of course, you'll need to ensure that the funder's eligible expenses even support your need because you can't apply for software if the funder only covers capacity building. When you're very specific about what you need and what your plan is, then the level of risk for the funder decreases and their confidence will increase in your plan. So when your project's clearly defined, it tells the reviewer that you have thought this through. It shows intention. Next is capacity and credibility. And this is one area where I often see women entrepreneurs underestimate themselves. Capacity is not just about how many employees you have, it's your experience, it's your lived knowledge, your traction, testimonials, partnerships. Funders fund evidence. So if you have pilot clients, document it. If you have community support, show it. If you have early wins, highlight them. This is not bragging. This is demonstrating that you can deliver. Do you keep track of your wins? For example, I keep track of my wins and I review it monthly. I review it against the goals I set for myself at the beginning of the year. And of course, what I thought would have been a win at the beginning of the year may not feel like that now, but it keeps me tracking my wins. And that's really important because how quickly we forget when we're put on the spot. Finally, outcomes and sustainability. Funders aren't just asking, what will you do with the money? They're asking, what changes because of it? And then what happens after it ends? Sustainability doesn't mean you have to have everything figured out for the next 5 years, but it means that this funding that you're applying for accelerates something sustainable rather than creating a temporary spike in revenues. Does this investment strengthen your foundation, your business foundation? Does it build capacity? Does it generate revenue? Does it expand reach in a measurable way? When you can articulate that clearly, your application will shift from just a request to an investment that funders want to invest in. And that's a very different position. So when we talk about readiness, that's what we mean. It's not your hustle or your hope, it's structure. And the stronger these pillars are, the stronger your probability of securing funding becomes. So at this point, almost every entrepreneur I work with can identify at least one of these gaps of business clarity, weak financial documentation, an undefined or overly broad project scope, limited demonstrated capacity or traction, misalignment with funder priorities, or simply applying before your underlying structure is strong, before you're truly ready. So notice something important. None of these are personality flaws. They're not intelligence gaps or skills gaps. They're structural gaps, and structural gaps can be strengthened. This is why I say rejection is often structural. It's never personal. It's data. Data helps us adjust. And when you shift from, "Ugh, I failed," to something in my structure needs refinement, you move from discouragement into strategy. And in this context, strategy means being honest about readiness before chasing opportunities. It means slowing down before you speed up. Because the real question, again, isn't which grant should I apply for? It's, am I actually ready? And readiness should not feel abstract. It should be accessible. So I want to give you something practical. I created a simple 5-pillar funding readiness checklist based on what and how funders assess your readiness. So if you can check these boxes confidently, then you're likely ready. But if not, not a failure, it's just providing you direction. So I want to open this up and have a look at it with you. I created this checkable list that you can go through and answer, and maybe there will be quite a few boxes unchecked, but it just breaks down your business clarity. Can you clearly explain what your business does? Is your messaging consistent? Same with funding readiness. Is your bookkeeping current? Do you know your numbers? What about trends? Do you bring in more income during the summer? And then we have your project scope. So, what I mean by project scope is what you need funding for. So, if your project scope could be a part time employee, that's your project scope. And then you start breaking down every detail of that so that you're very clear and specific with the funder. If your project scope is to travel to a new market to export your services or products, then you'll need funding for travel and accommodations and things like that. And then capacity and credibility. This is basically where you want your evidence and your data. I know I said it's not bragging, but this is where you want to brag about yourself. You want to talk about your experience, your lived knowledge. So then we have outcomes and sustainability. This is where you can say, if I hire a part-time employee with this funding, then I anticipate my profit will double over the next year. So this is contributing to your long-term goals and your sustainability of your business, and it's building that foundation we were talking about. Oh, if you go through this checklist, you can score yourself and you can count how many boxes you checked. If you can check at least 20 boxes, I would say, yeah, you're ready to apply for funding. If you checked 15 to 19, you might want to strengthen those particular pillars that may be the weakest. And then if you check under 15, then you want to focus on building those pillars out. Once you identify your weak pillars, then that will inform your next 30 to 60 days. Now that you have this checklist, I don't overwhelm you with 10, 20 new tasks to do. I want you to focus. First, just review the checklist honestly, not optimistically. Don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. You want to be honest with yourself. See where you hesitate, where you're not really sure if you can check it or not. Where is this happening? Where do you realize that something is not yet fully built? That's your starting point. So you can strengthen your weakest pillar first. You don't have to do all five because when you try to fix everything, you fix nothing. We know this. But when you strengthen one structural gap, your confidence and clarity will increase very quickly. And if you find yourself stuck or unsure how to strengthen that pillar, reach out to me. I'm happy to help and answer any questions you have because your clarity will accelerate your progress. Sometimes what feels like confusion is simply just a lack of structure. And as you know, as we've learned, structure is solvable. So, if what we've covered today resonates, it likely means that you can see one or two pillars that might need some strengthening. And that's exactly why I created iPlume Funding Essentials. This is a by step support to strengthen your readiness, identify aligned funding, build realistic budgets, create a structured funding plan, and even incorporate AI effectively, ethically, responsibly. I recently delivered this framework, this 2-day in person session on grant writing for Black led organizations through BBI and SBCCI. And what shifted most was not just the knowledge, it was the confidence because the structure replaces the guesswork and it allows us to become more confident. My hope is that you leave here thinking more strategically about your readiness because access matters and preparation multiplies that access. You deserve access to capital, and preparation is how we increase our probability of getting that. That's the work. I give all kinds of tools and templates that we actually work through together. It's a very, very hands on, practical 2-day session where you learn everything you need, plus, you get all the tools, which includes a grant spreadsheet of all the opportunities in federal government, provincial, municipal, all the opportunities in foundations. During that training, everyone chose a grant from the list of opportunities and they built a grant alongside the training. Every time we stopped and did something practical, they were building upon one application. And then they were able to reach out to me, send me their grant. I was able to review it and provide them that feedback before they submit it to the funder, just so that they're no longer guessing. They have the confidence. So that's why I love that training so much because my real passion is to help build that capacity so that they're now sustainable and they can actually do it themselves. I know you probably have more questions than answers, and that's normal. This was more just an introduction to really becoming ready. I'm here for you. If you have any questions, just shoot me a message, send me an email, book a time to chat. Anything I can do to help make the process clearer and help you become more confident and ensure that you're able to access funding opportunities instead of putting in your own money when you don't necessarily have to. I'm here for you and I want to help you in doing that.